It's definitely and kind of tailing. I know I've been keeping you guys for quite a long time here, but the one of those last questions for me was for you guys was kind of diving into is cold storage um, going to play a larger role for coffee roasters, and for me personally, um, as I also have a part-time job with a big company here in New Zealand, and currently building that business case to understand cold storage as a whole for our full production, and from green to also roasted to look at exactly that. Chris is, you know, making sure that if we are buying larger lots of coffee, now I'm talking like the bottom kind of tail end of specialty coffees, 80 to 84 point coffees, of buying them in larger lots and putting them in cold storage to not necessarily freeze, but slow down that rate of aging. But then also being able to, roast larger lots, and store them in a point where they're going to age a lot slower and bag off and blend what you need to that week.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're saving everything. So
These industrial storage freezer units are like these warehouses that are all totally cold. Those things are they operate independent of whether you're putting coffee in it or not. Right? They're filled with fish and tater tots and whatever else is stored in those freezers and mass produced. So it's just a matter of like renting the space. And I think I asked George Howell about the price that he paid per pound or per square foot or something. I can't remember exactly how they build it, but it shook out to be on the order of like, a couple of US cents per pound per month. So we're talking like, not a lot of, not expensive, not like prohibitively expensive for, if you're going to store coffee that's worth a lot of money, or even if you're going to store a lot of coffee worth not necessarily a lot of money, right? It's not going to kill you to put it in one of these industrial freezers. It might be a little bit dramatic if you had to freeze it all yourself on site, because the inefficient freezer, the smaller they are, your bar fridge, it has only like one eco star, and your bigger fridge here has like 3, and then you go to the industrial ones, and they're really energy efficient because that's the better insulation and all this stuff. So everybody has like one of these cold storage facilities. Basically, every city has like hundreds of them around. They exist in a lot of places. It's just a matter of getting your connections so that you can figure out where the heck they are. But it's not too difficult. You can just go and ask, a local fish shop. They definitely know, because
in that sense, though, if you're enabling a larger company to do something like that, it wouldn't be too dissimilar from what something like I'm doing or something like Ona are doing. You're just allowing a certain product to be available around the whole year. Right. You might not want to have a seasonal blend. You might want to have a blend that has the same components all year round. And I guess this just reaffirms what you're saying, Chris, that it's really not too dissimilar from something like what myself or Ona Coffee are doing with their reserve menus.
Right. I don't see it as, they're all the same concept, basically. It's just a matter of how you actually implement it. It depends on what you're trying to do. I originally thought it'd be fun to try and like make your cafe like this huge vending machine. You walked in, there was just a wall of glass with like, those metal things like this. And behind the glass was a freezer. And, you had like a tremendous number of coffees in the freezer, and a drop out of the vending machine, and away you go. Right. And, it'd be a feature, not a small vending machine, but, like a huge wall of it, which could be cool. And then you think, well, how inefficient would that thing be? Very, extremely inefficient, because it's like, that's some custom made refrigerator. That thing is going to be real pain. But, these industrial freezers facilities, no problem.
And a lot of large scale roasters don't keep their coffee on site anyway.
Right.
The coffee company I used to work for didn't. And I even remember going to Canberra and visiting Sam Cora, and him saying that the floor nearly collapsed because they had so much coffee on their floor. So like, there's a need to sort of store coffee off site anyway. So it's probably better to freeze it in the right conditions.
Yeah. What's the difference?
Cool.
Well, yeah. Hey, so this concept of going cold, I didn't chime in because you guys were talking about the flavor profiles, but this temperature control thing is something that's like, I guess another reason why it's kind of difficult for people to want to get involved with freezing is because it's like we've added another variable. And even though that variable exists right now anyway, like if I go to my counter and brew coffee right now, it's different temperature in here than it was this morning or whatever. But I think people don't see that necessarily as much of a variable as, if you have to now control down to -50.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that's done well on industrial levels is that those big facilities, the bigger the freezer, the more stable the temperature, whatever it is.
So I think we can kind of all agree here that there is a big future in cold storage for coffee, whether it's green or roasted, in my opinion. But I'm definitely a yes. I see a huge future in this for coffee, and yeah, the benefits definitely for me outweigh any of the issues, and we just need to be figure out processes and equipment to that extent that can kind of take this on in a more efficient way. But yeah, I'm definitely a yes for cold storage. Definitely has a future in coffee.
I think around the world for a really long time, and simple science backs it up. We use freezers through every industry, from medical to your house to ancient times, trying to keep things cold if they can. So it's just about cooler temperature, being able to slow things down so you can use it.
Perhaps we're going to make a scenario where someone who doesn't believe in coffee is kind of viewed like an anti-vaxxer is, if you're not freezing your coffee, where the hell are you? That's a joke, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
I think it all comes back to just coffee goes stale really quickly. It does. And, we can work on the back end, which we're all fighting the good fight to make coffee better and easier and more consistent. But, I always come back to the customer drinking coffee. And I just want it to be great for them. And if we can make it a bit more consistent, a bit more controlled, and even if it's freezing coffee, make it really simple, then that's a great place to be on the front line. And then we can continue to tweak things on the back. But from a base level, freezing coffee, even if it's most simple function done in a simple way, means you can enjoy pretty much that cup that you like most of the time. It's pretty cool, rather than going, it's gone stale and the rest of the bag's off and you don't want to drink it. And then all that hard work, it's been on the tree for a year, it's been processed, it's been dried, it's been roasted, it's been picked, packed, it's been sent, it's been ground, it's been da-da-da-da-da. And then all of a sudden, one day later, it's no good.
Yeah.
It's such a...
That's one of those things that makes coffee really unique as a beverage, right? It's like it can all be ruined at the very last step.
Yep.
And that's definitely, you can put ice cubes in your Chardonnay, right? But, basically Chardonnay is pretty foolproof. Just open it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess you got to cool that one. That's a bad example. Let's go Pinot Noir. All right. Anyway, yeah. So, I got one more anecdote for you, because I guess I got to check out. It's dinner time here. One of the side products or byproducts of this whole thing that I did not expect was people that would pick it up and take it to a creative business model. And so you guys, for example, have taken that and created a coffee library, or you have also like a vintage, if you like, or exotic coffees that are off season. All these things are really cool. But there was one that really, I got an email, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago. This barista sort of left the coffee community, ended up working in food, and he ended up working for this extremely famous restaurant called the French Laundry, which is one of these like 3 Michelin star places in Sonoma. And he was given basically infinite budget to develop the coffee menu at this place, because actually, as we all know, coffee in high-end restaurants sucks. And so what he did was, what they're doing at French Laundry is they can't predict what's going to taste great for their desserts, and their desserts are really important there. But what they definitely want to do is have a coffee that has a flavor profile that fits the dessert. And so what they've done is they have identified, coffees that have like the flavor profile that contains primarily strawberry or primarily pineapple or whatever. flavors, and then they've frozen them. And then when it comes time to serve a dessert that's made up of something that complements the strawberry flavor in this particular coffee, then they just pull out the strawberry one. They don't, and they have an arsenal of like 50, and you can almost think of them like Pantone markers that they just say, oh, which one of these markers is going to do the best in helping this dessert taste the way it does. And I mean, that's totally bonkers. Yeah. And so like, even at that place, one of the things you can get is a cigar at the end of the meal, which is, maybe outdated. I like it though, whatever. And, they already told me that they started pairing Sumatran coffee with that. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Because, for all of us, we're like, yeah, that's typically like the cigar is what we'd say is maybe that actually that coffee tasted like. But they arrived at that empirically. They got to that separate of, independent of us talking like this. Now they have the option to really roll out 50 different coffees and pick one at any point and know that it's going to hit exactly the flavor profile. That's awesome. Yeah. I wish more restaurants saw the value in this, because they already have the freezers. They already there's a business in here somewhere to actually totally revolutionize bad coffee in restaurants. Because at least now with a freezer, now you can just give them the recipe and say, just do this, just grind it, pull it out and grind it and pour water on it, and you're done.
Yeah. Let's look at this from another perspective as well, in terms of profit per kilo. If we look at the way we traditionally do, more so obviously espresso, but our traditional espresso grinders and the way they're functioning, if we're having to redial in coffees and we've got a bit of wastage there, whereas me personally, when I dial in on an EK, I can dial in any kind of coffee I feel like within 2-3 shots, and you get so much more of a clear vision on that coffee, but then you also get more value out of your kilo. So for me on the cafe side, it's like, and obviously we need to develop better or more equipment, or alternative grinders, let's say, whole nother talk, to be able to combat this individual dosing scenario to make it more efficient. I mean, you look at what Proud Marys have done in Portland in terms of having that giant freezer on top of the EK and the volumetric doses.
What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah.
In my talks I give, I get 2 laughs. One is when I show the shrimp fridge, and the other one is when I show the minibar fridge mounted on the beautiful marble wall in Portland's Proud Mary coffee roasters. Yeah. Well,
any news is good news.
Yeah. Look, I think if it tastes good to them, then they should do it. Yeah. Because it doesn't really matter. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to go in there and you're going to have the experience. And like, I drink a lot of coffee I'm not very happy about out in cafes that think very highly of themselves, because people like try really, really hard to make something taste good. But if it just tastes good and you didn't try that hard, or it tastes good and you tried really hard, that's what I really want. So, as long as it's tasting good, who cares what it looks like? Put the fridge on the wall.
I think there's another thing that with freezing that is really interesting is as it moves into consumers. So I would say like 10 years ago, if you asked a barista, how should I store my coffee? It was always just cool, dark place. But we have lots of customers now, and lots of customers have vac sealers now. And so people are actually freezing their coffee. And I think that will have a huge impact. If you think of drinking coffee at home, especially with COVID, that people, or I tell customers just to put it all in a mason jar, and to be quick when they're dosing it out. Because up to now, we've really not equipped customers really well with how to store coffee. And if they're going through it slow or they buy a lot, we have customers that want to buy like 5-pound bags from us. That coffee experience is just terrible. Like we worry about cafes right now where we're sweating one day of age, but on a consumer side, they could be the difference between a coffee sitting out for a month and or a coffee that is a month old but's been in a freezer that whole time. I think that also has a huge possibility in changing the industry, because it will keep specialty coffee tasting special longer.
Spot on. That's That's all we want. Like and all these things are geared that way. Like, you know, in the 80s we said, don't eat fat, eat sugar. You know, years ago we're saying, don't roast dark, roast light. And now we're like, no, develop it more. And, you know, we're still trying to figure out things coming out of adolescence in this industry. And, you know, that's cool. But one thing with freezing is it does what it does. Slows it down.
It's not super complicated.
It does it. You do it with beef, ice cream, bread. It's familiar. It's a really fundamental approach that isn't too alien for people to then go, I trust you, Ben. I'll freeze it. Oh, I can get a back sealer and a few bags or test tubes for $50, $60. And my coffee's always good. I have a freezer. It's easy. Cool. You know, so I think, it's really cool that we're not asking too much for people to plug into, and I think that's really cool.
Definitely on the retail side of things. So now that I'm no longer doing comp, I'm going to release all my comp coffees on a web store. But it's going to be a case of hopefully people will choose the option of having it in the silicon bag. But my recommendation is going to be, as soon as it arrives at your door, chuck it in the freezer, and then that way you've got a good coffee for as long as you want. And when I think about it from a personal perspective, my half of my family's Italian, and I remember as a kid, and still probably to this day, my uncle keeps his pre-ground supermarket coffee that he's bought. It's always been in the freezer, and that's what I always remember from my grandfather and that sort of stuff. The coffee was always put in the freezer. So maybe, I don't know if there was any kind of rhyme or reason back then, going back 30 odd years, of why that was that approach to my family drinking their Italian style coffee at home. But they're definitely onto something back there. So why not kind of promote that now with our customers, and trying to look at that reusable packaging and for them to be able to store it. Everyone's got a little bit of freezer space, and if it's enough to store their coffee and reuse that bag, we're going to minimize our wastage on packaging and maximize the length of the experience that a customer can have. Right, gents, I think we're at a stopping point. It's been like over an hour and a half now. But look, I really appreciate everyone's time, and I think we could probably keep going for another hour or two. But guys, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get some more chats going with some more things soon.
I just wanted to say as well, John, this is such a great idea to be able to get together and have a chat and focus topics and connect with these gents that I haven't seen in a while. So lovely to see you guys, and thanks John for creating Hive, and I look forward to watching other focused chats and learning and connecting and in this new world.
Well done, mate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Fingers crossed. It's just about getting a lot of this stuff out there for people, just to be able to try and help move things along and create a bit of a safety net for everyone in our industry, and kind of grow and hit these problems with a lot more information together. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Have a good morning.
Ciao for now.
Guys.
See everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.